For example, one of the early things I put up about the South Tower when I'm trying to figure out the plane thing, because the government story is a fraud, and that is I thought, oh, I came across this technology that allows a plane to just turn blue, sky blue on its underside. Okay, it's a very expensive thing, and was very inferior technology to putting up a holographic type image. Technology I don't have the details on, but a real plane which could do a flyby and then coordinate very much like the Pentagon in terms of some kind of destruction that creates a gash in the building. Well, that turned out to be wrong, but you're going to make mistakes along the way. And my website, which is nomoregames.net, and I encourage you to go looking around there. I leave the old stuff up, and in at least one case, it shows the intellectual progress I've made, and we therefore have made collectively. We learn as we go.
You'll be accused if for taking them down. If you correct yourself, you make a mistake, and then you just want to fix it. You have to leave that old stuff up because you'll find somebody there that has it, and then they'll stick it right in front of your face and say, "Why'd you delete it? You're a psyop."
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, it's not, so,
it happens.
Yeah, why bother since you can be caught up as if you're trying to cover up a mistake you made. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll flash back to the RFC right now. So I want you to briefly describe the process of it and describe just kind of the outcome. And I believe you had an appeal too. I know Dr. Woods did. But right before that, I just wanted to let people know about another company that was a contractor, Leslie E. Robinson, and they were the structural engineers for the original World Trade Centers. Now, I was wondering myself, wouldn't they find it odd that so much of their building was missing? Because they had to be involved in some way in the cleanup, I assume, because, hey, if a building collapses, I'm going to want those guys to know where things, how to take it apart, the remaining parts. So, if you just want to reflect on the Leslie E. Robinson and then kind of go into
and they would be culpable here in that they know better. They're not part of the gullible or ignorant public or psyoped by the media.
They know exactly how many pieces are in there. I calculated myself those prefab units on the outside. You have about 5,700 of those prefab units between the two buildings. Where are they? If you look at the overhead pictures, count me 5,700. You're gonna, it looks big when someone's standing next to it, but that's one. That's so Leslie E. Robinson should have said, "Hey, we used to have 5,700s of these prefab units. Where have they gone?"
Right, and people that morning were just, you can see it in the pictures as Dr. Wood points out.
Oh yeah.
They just their mouth is agape.
It's like
these enormous towers, and they're gone, and there's hardly anything left.
When I first saw them, I was kind of like, you don't know, but once I started learning it, and I've gone through thousands of photos and myself and that, now I look at the picture and I'm like, why can I see the buildings on the other side? There used to be these giant buildings there. To somebody that doesn't know much, they're just going to look at it and say, hey, that's a pile or whatever. But to somebody that knows that, like those people that would have been there at ground zero at that time, and you see their expression, it makes perfect sense. They're thinking, I don't even think it clued into most of them. They're just like, they're so confused and distraught from what's going on. They're just in awe.
Right, and a really powerful example that Dr. Wood highlights was Stairwell B.
Absolutely.
Where there were some 14 FDNY
and one civilian
responders there in the stairwell, and they're like around the 10th floor, and they keep on calling for help, and eventually the person at the other end, he says, where is the North Tower?
North Tower, Stairwell B. North Tower,
stairwell. Where's the North Tower? And sure enough, supposedly over, what is it, 110? 100 stories of material fell on these guys, and they're all, fortunately, were among the survivors, and they walk out, and one of the guys, and I could pull the book right off the shelf here and find it quickly, but he says, I looked out and it was like there was a football field.
Jay Jonas?
Where is everything?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of odd, to walk out of these massive buildings that you've passed by so many times, and then suddenly there's just nothing left, And for all the people that say that it went into the basement and that, do more homework. Look at the pictures. You could see holes into the side of what is it, WTC2, and actually Stairwell B helped me kind of inform somebody that was said, okay, well, I heard Dr. Wood's work and it's good, but he said he's a very nice older guy, and he was like, why don't you think about nukes? Think about it. But then I said, okay, well, if you want to go, what about the people in Stairwell B? Because the explanation for nukes, right? It had in Dimitri, whatever his name is, it goes off underneath, it rattles the building, evaporates or everything on top of it or whatever. But what about, how can a nuclear bomb go off, destroy something, skip a bit of area where a stairwell is? And same thing with thermite and explosives. And
well, yeah, the nuke thing fails badly. I've written about this 2 years ago, and people, they don't get it, but it doesn't bear the earmarks of a nuclear explosion.
Nope.
For example, where are all the blinded people? The blinded by the light.
Well, then you get into the sophisticated weapons. They'll say, well, they're the nukes that don't emit any light. They're the nukes that they could stay contained to a foot by foot diameter, and
Yeah, these are it's what they accuse Dr. Wood of, and
and then they do it.
Who, they say, oh, you're just invoking magic, this unknown technology. Well, hey, she's covered by the fact it's not that we know the serial number or the exact method of delivery and all the details, but it's just a relatively open-ended to say, hey, it was energy. It was directed, and it turned these buildings, these massive buildings, mostly to fine powder. And the data on this is very clear. There's no question about that. And these kinetic energy weapons, of which nukes are a class, a particularly powerful one, don't cut it. I mean, the amount of force that the sound,
the bathtub
that goes out around. I mean, you can't keep this confined. And then they come up with these suitcase things. Well, they don't even answer the question. If you have a nuclear explosion 10 feet from another one, ain't that going to disturb these other small nuclear devices?
It's crazy. Well, people. Go on.
It's amazing how people who should know better, and most of it is inadvertent error, but they aren't susceptible to reason. In other words, let's look at the evidence from the weapon you're advocating, how it behaves, and match that up against the evidence from 9/11 in Lower Manhattan, and see, hey, there's a lot of non-matching going on here. And then, it's very frustrating. And just conventional demolition. If you've seen or heard, just go on YouTube and look at a conventional demolition. You got the bang, 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 bang. And you basically blow away the props and get the thing to implode, okay? Well, the towers were clearly top down.
Yep. And actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I don't know if I mentioned to you, but I had the unique experience of being on the front lines of a controlled demolition here in when was it, July, I believe, early July, and it's night and day. It's night and day between what happened at the World Trade Center site. Just first off, the explosions are sitting there waiting. Then boom, 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 boom. You feel it right in your chest, your teeth even rattle a bit. And first, also too, I was able to see it while it was getting prepped, and they absolutely tear everything out of those buildings, because anything could be a projectile. I saw this one from a British one back in the 90s, and it was an explosion, and all of a sudden this rock comes hurtling. Somebody just happens to move their head, but I believe a little girl died, and she was hit in the head by debris at this botched demolition. And that was debris. It was completely cleared the building before, but anyways, the one that I was at, everything is out of there. There's windows still left on some floors, but they got the rest of it, and because they can't risk it, and it's it's not something where you're like, hey, the guy next to me didn't hear a controlled demolition, but I did. No, it's going off and it's there. And another really cool thing about it is I had a picture at the site. It was August, and I believe it was only about 18 degrees Celsius outside, or 17, so it wasn't that hot. It was an August night around 7, and a earth moving equipment, I think it was an excavator, it was on fire. Because it probably exceeded the temperature limit, and which is hilarious. It's like, I have the pictures. This excavator is on the middle of this rubble pile, clearing this controlled demolition site, and it's on fire because it got too hot in the day there, and the machine couldn't handle it. So how is this machines that we see at the World Trade Center site? How are they lifting out these glowing beams with the beams being that temperature that they need to be to glow?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the issue of these hydraulics would be boiling. You know.
They wouldn't work.
Yeah.
The whole machine would seize, and the people would be cooked. And two, the most notable thing is, I have pictures from the demolition that I was at. Those floors are all stacked up on top of each other at the back of the building, and there's chunks all over. Everything's in chunks. There's it's not like there's just like one little chunk here, one little chunk. No, it's all in chunks. There's rebar everywhere that looks like it's been broken up by a demolition. Not that it's weird, twisted and stuff. Steel is everywhere. It looks nothing like the World Trade Center site.
Yeah. So where are the 110 floors from each tower? You know, it's just they would be stacked up. Well, even if you filled the basement, you know, with 7 floors of these crushed, it's absurd.
You're still at 10 or 12 stories, I believe. Then, even if you fill up all the basement.
Yeah, yeah, you would have, you know, from the usual compression of air out, and a fine collapse, you'd have a minimum of 13 or 14 stories of material, you know, that was all compressed together. So, and there's so many, you know, reminds me, one thought leads to another, but please read Where Did the Towers Go?
Yes. For everybody, please read it. Look at all the other. I don't know what page it is, but she has a chart, I believe, in it that just talks about the traits seen at the site versus what you would see in normal controlled demolitions with thermite, with nukes, blah blah blah. And the only thing that is good all the way through is the Hutchison effect. It's not that one day she was lying in bed and she's like, "Oh, there's this cool guy that uses this stuff. Okay, that's what." No, it's because all these all the characteristics that John Hutchison has been able to replicate in his lab over and over and over again are seen at the World Trade Center site. So one has to connect them both. How could we ignore that?
Right, right. So, you know, this is interferometry of electromagnetic spectrum. And he basically started off with let's see what Nikola Tesla was doing here, and you know, you get these quote anomalous unquote effects of you know, a melding of metals and levitation. You know.
Yep.
And so there, you know, one of the frustrating things here is that the perpetrators used exotic means and then propaganda to help cover up their crimes. So the methods of destruction at the World Trade Center, intelligence services and the military knew around the world right away what this meant. You know, it basically said, hey, look what we can do. Look at what our new gizmo can do, and we can use this on you, okay? And, you know, be afraid, be intimidated. And the same with the whole plane story is just, you know, such a bag of BS. It's amazing how this is beyond polite company. You know, it's just ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely.
Wait a minute, folks.
No, and people get fed so much garbage that they just don't want to look into it. You know, they get fed so much trash that they're just confused. They're frustrated. They're like, you know what? It's just better if I just sit on the sidelines, don't think about it. And that's exactly what ends up happening.
Right, and it's culturally devastating, as Professor Eric Larsen has complained in multiple books now. It's very corrosive because the intellectual community is living a lie, basically. You know, they won't go there. So it's very the traitor, the treason of the intellectual. So it's just, I mean, here it goes back. I'm repeating myself, but it's remarkable how this has exposed what a top-down society we've become.
Absolutely, absolutely.